Africa's most prolific hunters, the Njombe Lion Pride. Full audiobook. A dramatic non-fiction account of the lions of Njombe. Historical note. The commonly repeated death toll is about 1,500 victims between 1932 and 1947, though modern retellings treat the number as an estimate rather than a verified census. This manuscript presents the story in dramatic non-fiction style while acknowledging that some details come from historical accounts and local memory. Prologue. When the night learned to hunt. In the southern highlands of Tanganyika, where the grass rolled over the hills like a restless sea and the villages sat beneath a sky heavy with stars, the night once carried a sound that made men forget their courage. It was not the sound of war. It was not the sound of thunder. It was the low, rolling breath of lions moving between the huts. By day, Njombe could seem peaceful. Smoke rose from cooking fires, women worked near the fields, children moved along the narrow footpaths, men watched the tree line and listened for cattle bells. Yet when the sun disappeared behind the dark ridges, another kingdom opened its eyes. In that kingdom, doors were not always doors, walls were not always walls. A roof of grass was not a roof if something strong enough decided to tear through it. The darkness became a passageway, and the villages became hunting grounds. Between 1932 and 1947, the Njombe district became the setting of one of the most terrifying human-wildlife conflicts ever recorded. The attackers were not one wounded lion or two old predators pushed out of the wild. The attackers were remembered as a great pride, a killing society of lions, moving.
Humans were slow in the night. Humans lived in fixed places. Humans slept behind walls made by hands rather than stone. Humans were frightened, and frightened prey made mistakes. By 1932, the fear had spread across the district like a second darkness. Villages that once ended the day with voices and cooking fires began to close themselves early. Paths emptied before sunset. Mothers pulled children indoors. Men sharpened spears and sat awake until their eyes burned. Dogs barked at shadows until even the barking became part of the terror. Then came the hour when the fires sank low. That was when the pride moved. They came without the wasteful roar of animals trying to frighten a herd. They came with the patience of hunters that had already learned the shape of the village. One lion might circle the huts, another might wait beyond the footpath, a third might test a doorway. The rest held the darkness behind them. Some survivors spoke of claws scraping at walls. Others remembered the weight of an animal pressing against a door. In the morning, the ground told the rest of the story. Drag marks led away from the settlement. Footprints crossed each other in the dust. Blood faded into the grass. The effect was larger than death alone. The lions did not merely kill people, they changed how the living behaved. Fields went untended, roads lost travelers, families moved together in fear. Entire areas became places people avoided after sundown. Njombe was no longer only a district on a colonial map. It became a landscape of warning, where every hut stood like an island in a sea of predators. As the years passed, the numbers became unthinkable. Hundreds, then more, then the figure that would follow Njombe into legend. 1,500 victims. That number made the outbreak different from a random series of animal attacks. It suggested something with rhythm, duration, and method. It suggested a campaign, not in the human sense of command and intention, but in the biological sense of a strategy repeated because it worked. The lions had found a prey source. The prey source was people, and the night belonged to them. Chapter 2. The Colonial Catalyst. No nightmare begins from nothing. Before Njombe became a killing ground, the land had already been altered. The old balance between lions, people, livestock, and wild prey had been disturbed by forces larger than any single village. Disease came like an invisible fire. Rinderpest tore through cattle and wild ungulates across parts of Africa, damaging the herds that supported predators. Antelope, buffalo, and other hoofed animals had once carried the weight of the lion's hunger. When those numbers fell, the lions faced a harsher world. A starving predator does not become gentle, it becomes experimental. Then came the pressures of colonial rule. British game laws, settlement policies, and land control changed how people lived with wildlife. Traditional systems of movement, burning, grazing, and local defense were weakened or disrupted. People were pushed into patterns that suited administration better than ecology. Land that once held space between humans and lions became crowded, managed, fenced, hunted, or emptied in uneven ways. The result was not simple. It was not only that lions lost prey. It was not only that humans entered lion country.
It was the joining of several pressures at once. Wild prey declined in places. Human settlement became more predictable. Some areas lost the old buffer between the village and the bush. Colonial officials often treated wildlife as either a resource to be controlled or a threat to be removed, while local knowledge was not always respected. Njombe became an ecological vacuum. In that vacuum, lions adapted. At first, the shift may have been small, a body left shallow in the earth, a traveler caught alone, a child near the edge of a village, a weak door, a roof easy to break. Each success taught the pride something useful. A lion does not need human language to learn cause and effect. The smell of people led to food. The shape of a hut meant vulnerability. The panic after an attack made escape easier. The darkness covered everything. Predators survive by reading the world honestly. They do not care what humans think should happen. They care what works. In Njombe, the old prey had become harder to find, while human settlements offered a terrible reliability. The lions learned that a village was not a place to avoid. A village was a feeding ground. This was the colonial catalyst. Not one law, not one disease, not one decision, but a chain of disruptions that made the impossible possible. The pride did not become monstrous because lions had changed their nature. They became monstrous because their nature met a broken landscape. Hunger opened the door. Opportunity held it open. Repetition turned the act into tradition. Chapter 3. The Tactical Evolution. Ordinary lions are powerful enough to kill without cleverness, but the Njombe pride became feared because power was not their only weapon. Their weapon was adaptation. Accounts of the outbreak describe behavior that seemed to go beyond normal predation.
The lions were said to carry victims far from the village, sometimes for miles, reducing the chance that hunters could follow quickly. This created the impression of relay hunting, as though different members of the pride moved the body in stages or guarded the route while others fed. Whether every detail can be proven or not, the pattern of fear was real. The lions were difficult to catch, difficult to predict, and difficult to stop. They did not behave like a confused group of animals stumbling into settlements by accident. They behaved like a unit that had learned the weak points of human defense. At night, they came from angles people did not expect. A family might block the door only to hear movement above them. A hut was meant to keep out weather, wind, and ordinary danger. The roof was thatch, not fortress stone. Once the lions learned that the top of a hut could be opened, shelter lost its meaning. A person could no longer say, "I am safe because I am indoors." That realization did more damage than claws. It broke the mind's last refuge. The pride also learned timing. They understood the hours when people were deepest in sleep. They understood the confusion after the first scream. They understood that human defenders needed light, while lions owned the dark. A spear is brave in a man's hand, but bravery needs a target. In Njombe, the target moved like smoke.
The lions struck and vanished. They approached through grass, through gullies, through the blind sides of huts. When men gathered with torches, the lions were already gone. When traps were set, the lions avoided them. When bait was laid, they sometimes ignored it, as if they had learned that the easiest meat was not the meat tied to a stake, but the human waiting behind a wall. The people of Njombe were not helpless. They built defenses, they changed routines, they traveled together, they watched the night, they called for help, they tried to fight back with what they had. Yet the pride kept learning. Every failed trap became a lesson. Every unsuccessful hunt by humans showed the lions where danger waited. Every village that panicked became easier to read. The pride's coordination turned the landscape into a battlefield, though only one side fully understood the darkness. The lions did not need maps. Their map was scent, memory, sound, and hunger. They knew the footpaths, they knew the cattle enclosures, they knew the sleeping places. Most frightening of all, they seemed to know human routine. A man who left before dawn, a woman who fetched water late, a child near the doorway, a funeral, a weak wall, a tired village. Predation became pattern, pattern became terror, and terror became the daily weather of Njombe. Chapter 4. A Generational Bloodline. The most chilling part of the Njombe story is not that lions killed humans. It is that the behavior may have lasted long enough to be taught. A lion cub is born helpless, but not empty. It carries instinct, yet instinct needs direction. Cubs learn the world through play, imitation, and repeated exposure. They watch the lionesses, they follow at a distance, they smell blood, they learn what the pride accepts as food. In a normal pride, the lesson is zebra, buffalo, wildebeest, antelope, warthog, and other wild prey. The cub learns the chase. The cub learns the danger of horns and hooves. The cub learns that prey fights back in certain ways. In Njombe, a cub may have learned another lesson. Humans were prey. Human settlements held food. Doors could fail, roofs could tear, fire could be avoided.
Men with spears were dangerous only when seen early enough. If 3 generations of lions were involved, as some accounts suggest, then Njombe was not only an outbreak, it was a bloodline of behavior. It was a culture of predation inside a pride. This does not mean lions became evil. Evil is a human judgment. Lions do not kill from hatred. They kill because they are built to kill and because survival rewards success. Yet that truth makes the Njombe case more disturbing, not less. The pride did not need malice to become devastating. It only needed a strategy that worked and young lions present to inherit it. By 2026, modern lion research still shows the pride as one of nature's most complex social structures. Lionesses cooperate in hunts. Related females raise cubs within a shared society. Male coalitions defend territory. Young lions learn through observation, play, and experience. That social intelligence is usually part of a healthy ecosystem. Njombe showed the dangerous edge of the same gift. The pride's strength was cooperation. Its danger was memory. Its legacy was teaching.
Modern prides do not normally specialize in humans. Even in areas where human-lion conflict still exists, human eating remains abnormal. Lions usually prefer wild prey or livestock when those are accessible. Human attacks often rise where prey is scarce, people move through lion habitat, and poverty forces communities to live without strong protection. Njombe was rare because the abnormal did not fade quickly. It repeated. Early defenses failed because the people were not facing one desperate animal. They were facing a social predator system. A trap that might catch a lone lion did not necessarily break a pride. A fence that protected one side of a hut did not protect the roof. A hunting party that killed one lion did not erase the lesson from the others. The villagers adapted, and the lions adapted after them. People set watches. The lions waited. People reinforced doors. The lions found roofs. People moved in groups. The lions chose the isolated. People laid bait. The lions hunted the bait layers. The outbreak became a contest of learning. Every night asked the same question: who had understood the other better? Chapter 5. The End of the Nightmare. By the time George Rushby entered the story, Njombe was already wounded. Rushby was a game ranger, hunter, and colonial officer, a man shaped by the hard and often brutal world of African wildlife management in the first half of the 20th century. He did not arrive into mystery alone. He arrived into grief, rumor, fear, and anger. He found a district where people had lived too long under siege. The challenge before him was not simply to shoot lions. Many men could shoot a lion if the animal stood before them in daylight. Njombe's lions did not offer such fairness. They were elusive. They understood danger. They moved across difficult country. They carried the memory of years in which humans had tried and failed to stop them. Rushby had to hunt hunters. He followed tracks that vanished in hard ground. He listened to reports that came wrapped in fear and sometimes in supernatural explanation. Some local accounts connected the lions to witchcraft and to the name Matamula Mangera, reflecting the way terror becomes spiritual when ordinary explanations cannot carry its weight. For frightened communities, the lions seemed too organized, too persistent, too impossible to be merely animals. Rushby faced the predators and the belief surrounding them.
A man can aim at a lion, he cannot shoot a rumor. He had to build confidence where confidence had collapsed. He had to separate fresh sign from old panic. He had to know when to move and when to wait. He had to enter the country of the pride without the pride choosing every encounter. The work was slow. There was no single heroic afternoon that solved Njombe, no clean moment where one bullet ended 15 years of fear. The end came through endurance, tracking, baiting, watching, and killing the specific lions believed to be responsible. One by one, the pride's power weakened. Each dead lion mattered. A man-eater is not only an animal, it is a message moving through the night. When one was killed, the people saw proof that the darkness could bleed. When another fell, the spell weakened. When the attacks slowed, hope returned in cautious steps.
The final confrontation belonged less to legend than to exhaustion. The cycle broke because the hunters removed enough of the pride, because the surviving lions no longer held the same structure, and because human communities began to regain the ground that fear had taken from them. Njombe did not wake one morning fully healed. Places that have lived through terror do not become ordinary again all at once. A quiet night can still feel suspicious. A child's cry can still bring adults upright. Grass moving near a hut can still stop the breath. Yet slowly the district changed. People returned to paths. Fields were worked again. Doors became doors again. Roofs became roofs again. The lions were no longer the rulers of every night. But ending the killing was not the same as solving the cause. The deeper lesson was ecological. If prey disappears, predators adapt. If people are pushed into dangerous land without protection, conflict grows. If local knowledge is ignored, warning signs are missed. If fear is allowed to govern a district for too long, the cost rises beyond counting. Njombe became a warning written in blood. Human-wildlife conflict is often described as a battle between people and animals, but that is too simple. The true conflict usually begins earlier, when landscapes are changed faster than communities and wildlife can adjust. A lion that kills a person is the final event in a chain. The first events may be disease, policy, displacement, poverty, prey loss, and the slow collapse of old boundaries. The Njombe lions were not demons, they were not soldiers. They were predators placed inside a broken system, and they discovered a terrible opportunity. That is why their story still matters. It reminds us that nature does not forgive imbalance simply because humans failed to notice it. It reminds us that intelligent predators learn from our weaknesses. It reminds us that survival strategies can become traditions when they are taught to the young. It reminds us that fear itself can reshape a society. Above all, Njombe reminds us that the line between coexistence and catastrophe is thinner than people like to believe. For centuries, lions and humans have shared African landscapes in tension, respect, danger, and necessity. Most of the time, that relationship does not become Njombe. Most lions do not become man-eaters. Most villages do not become silent killing fields. But when prey disappears, when land is disrupted, when people are exposed, and when predators learn that humans can be hunted, the night can change its nature. In the southern highlands of Tanganyika, the night once changed.
It grew claws. It learned the shape of a hut. It learned the smell of fear. And for 15 terrible years, the lions of Njombe became Africa's most prolific hunters. Their reign ended. Their warning did not. The end. Thanks for visiting. Please subscribe to Meridian Audiobooks for more captivating and immersive audiobooks.